All right, welcome back onto the baseline. Today, if you're listening on the day it comes out, is August 25th. We've got another banger set up for this week, as the kids might say. Brookfield Central boys basketball head coach Dan Wandrey joined us. We've also got a starting five this week that had all of us confused for maybe a day. We're going to do the starting five of places to watch high school sports. It's going to be a little specific. Stick around for that. And as always, we'll touch on some news and notes from around the state. This week's episode, like every episode, is sponsored by Bound. Head over to boundwisconsin.com where you will find your one-stop shop for everything high school sports in Wisconsin. Scores, schedules, rosters, all that league management stuff. Plus, content comes out daily. Football season started this past week. There's player of the week articles going up, team of the week, and then much, much more. So head over to boundwisconsin.com. I am Colton Wilson, and I am joined by Travis Wilson and Chris Smith. Trav, before we hop into anything, congrats on opening night win last Friday down in New Berlin. Nothing else happened after the win, though, right?
It was an interesting night. I will say it's a good thing that we won. It was a very close game, 1-point win over New Berlin West. We shot ourselves in the foot a lot. That's week one sometimes. Held them to -3 rushing yards. And New Berlin West is a team that runs and runs and runs and runs for years and years, running single wing and now back to more of a wing T this year. But our defense played well for the most part. Special teams, not as much, which is tough when I'm the special teams coordinator. So back to the drawing board a little bit there, back to work. But it's a good thing we won because 10 minutes after we left, got on the interstate, almost 2.5 hours from home. And the bus, you could smell kind of a burning smell on the bus, which is never good. And then a bunch of the alarms up on the driver. We had a coach bus up in the driver's console area. Started beeping, pulls off the interstate, and the bus had overheated. There was a coolant leak, and we were stuck almost over 2 hours from home, 10:30 or whatever it was. Had to wait for another coach bus to come. We limped forward to a quick trip, thankfully, in true Wisconsin fashion, and kids were able to get out and go to the bathroom and grab a chocolate milk and whatever else.
What did you grab?
Most of the kids, what's that?
Yeah,
what did you grab? We didn't know.
Chocolate post-game snack?
Well, we have Jimmy John's after the games, so we bring those in coolers. So we had food. I got a chocolate milk and I got a peanut butter Snickers. So that was my order. But most of the kids, their parents, if they were at the game, they turned around and came and got them because it was going to be way faster than waiting. So by the time we ended up getting another bus to come, it was midnight in New Berlin. Sounds like a country song. I don't know. But there was only 5 kids left to ride the bus home and 3 coaches. So most of the people had cleared out and found other rides and ways home. But I got home to my house after 2 a.m. So it was not ideal. But again, at least we won. If we would have lost, it would have been really bad. But since we won, it's just kind of a fun footnote after the fact.
That happening in football season, though, has to be way better than in the dregs of late January when it could be negative degrees out with snow all over the ground.
Yeah, probably.
Chris, has that ever happened to you? You ever been on a bus, whether it was playing days, coaching days, and it broke down either on the way or back from any game?
Yeah, I think there's been multiple times throughout the years. 20 plus years of coaching and playing through high school, I guess, so 25 years or whatever, close to, right? Nothing crazy, I guess, to where we had to wait for that long for a bus, but I've had some sketchy bus drivers. I can say that. I can specifically think of some bus drivers within the last few years where it's man, I don't know if we should have this guy drive anymore, especially in the wintertime when the weather's a little dicey. But that's
a topic of discussion, bus drivers, because
for sure. Fun side note now is that actually my JV2 basketball coach, he he is now going to be our bus driver as well. So he's going to be doing a
Yeah.
little double duty for every away game. So that makes me a little bit more confident in the ability of us to get there in one piece.
DeSoto football coach Ev Wick, who's been there over 20 years, has for quite some time now been their bus driver. He got a CDL, and so
Yeah.
he double dips and drives the bus to the away games.
I mean, that's awesome. And he asked me, he's like, would you be okay if I did that? And I said, absolutely. And like, I trust you. Obviously, I hire you on my staff. Like, I trust you to drive a bus and just, make sure that you do get us there in one piece. But no, I mean, he has an opportunity to make a little bit more money. What the heck, right?
Yeah, you're going anyway. We had a couple years ago, there was a dad, it was in Brett's class when he played JV football. A dad drove the bus to the away games. He's like, well, I'm going to go anyway. Might as well get paid.
Guys, before we really get into this episode, there's a sensitive subject that happened last Thursday over in Alma Center. A football player suffered an injury on the field and then ended up passing away over the weekend. The news, everybody had picked it up. I think I've seen it nationwide news too, and just it's something that is so absolutely tragic that it's so hard to talk about, even just sitting here and thinking about it. And we've talked about it, at least Trav and I have texted, or Chris, you texted too, like, man, just gutted for his family, gutted for that football team, for both football teams, and then just gutted for the community. It is something, it's awful.
Yeah, I've been doing this for over 20 years. Well, what is this? 19th year, sorry. And this is the first on-field player death that we have experienced in Wisconsin during that time. The last one was going back to 2003. I believe it was Dan Barwick had posted something about it. A player from, I think it was Lomira. And I think it was actually, like, I don't think it was a contact-related death. I think it was something that, he suffered a medical event on the field. But this one was, it seems, from a football related injury that happened. So yeah, not Brock. Colton, you were watching the game. You said you were watching the stream or keeping an eye on it amongst all the other ones, and saw, I think you even told me that night, there's something happened in the Alma Center game. They looked like they ended it early, and the stream was ended and everything. And then we started to get word on Friday of kind of the severity of the injury, that the player was receiving medical attention, but it was pretty significant. And then I don't know if it was Friday evening or Saturday that he ended up passing away. And I can't imagine for anybody that was there, what that was like on either side, because again, it involved a football play where there was other kids that were in on that play. There was somebody, that made contact or was involved in a contact situation that, is going to have to kind of deal with the consequences of what that is going to feel like. Not saying that there was anything that was different than any other normal football play, but everybody that was on that field and everybody that was there feels the consequences of that. And so it's a extremely difficult situation for everybody. He was, by the way, we're on a basketball podcast. He was a very good basketball player. He's a multi-sport athlete. Just a tough time up there. Tough time for the Turtle Lake community and players that were, on the field at that time and playing in that game. So not anything that is common, obviously. Colton, you were unfortunately there when an official passed away during a basketball game. Tracy Krieger passed away in the middle of one of your games. I don't recall a basketball player or or maybe even any other athlete in Wisconsin since I've been here passing away mid-competition anyway. There have been some that unfortunately had accidents, outside of the sports realm or whatever, but that's kind of a different deal when it happens in the game, during competition. Just makes what's already a tragedy even worse.
Yeah, you guys have both been dads for a long time now, or for a while now, and Thursday was one of those get scared about something that I'd never been scared about before. So, thoughts out to that community.
Yeah, I mean, Colton, you kind of said it 100%, right? Like, as when I heard about that, like the first thing that I thought about, obviously, like was my children, right? And just being protective of your own children, and um, as a a sports fan, a football fan, a coach, a parent, all those feelings like really just kind of rupture and like come through, and as you're thinking about that and you're trying to wrap your head around something that like that, and um, you know, we were so far away from it, right? And it still has an effect on all of us. And so, like Travis said, the people that were there and were a part of it and witnessed it, and the family members, the friends, the teammates, the opponents, like I can't even begin to fathom like what they're all going through. And my heart goes out to both communities and all the people involved with that. And um, it's just really, really sad to see, because we all love sports and we love the greatness of sports, but obviously like something that doesn't get talked about enough is like, there are dangers in playing athletics, and um, obviously not as common as, not that common of the thing to happen, but that is always a possibility that people try to block out, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough situation.
It is. And now we're going to try and shift gears a bit here and talk about some news and notes from around the state that happened over the last week. A couple coaching changes on the boys' side. Matthew Myota is in at Madison East. Stephanie Hertreiter is in at Schwamagon. Does that make 4 girls coaches on the boys' side of things?
4 female coaches, women
Or
coaches.
female, yes. Yes.
I can't remember where we're at exactly. There's been a few that have been in and out the last few years.
Parkview, Mary Crane, Amy,
4 sounds like
Angela Wagner.
Perhaps the right number.
Yeah. We had a couple commitments. Miles Smidgel, who's one heck of an athlete out of Fall Creek, he committed to D2 Upper Iowa, and then something that I think we had talked about right after the state tournament and speculated on, and honestly has been speculated on for the last 4 months. Dooney Johnson, who helped lead Milwaukee Juno to a state championship last year, one of the top players in the state and a Gonzaga commit, he has decided to play his final high school basketball season at East River High School in Florida. So we've seen
interesting move. Because it's a public school, correct?
Yeah, public school.
So not a prep school, nothing like that, not a private school, just a public school in Florida. So an interesting move, not a move that people I would say expected to happen. I think there was a lot of speculation of him potentially going to a prep school, but then all of a sudden, this is the announcement, and I guess we'll never know the reason fully why that occurred.
Yeah.
But it's a shame to lose one of the top players in the state out of an extremely special class, and just losing the couple guys that we have so far. As
you said, Colton, we speculated about it. It was, I don't want to say it was a poorly kept secret, but I think most people in the basketball community are not surprised. I would have probably been more surprised if he came back to Juneau. To be honest with you. And at this point, it's almost like if you're a top 5 kid in the state, it's a surprise when you stay all 4 years, is where we're getting to. There's other kids in that 27 class that are really talented. I don't know if this is the last move for that group. We'll see. But I mean, yeah, it's a surprise if those level of kids stay for 4 years anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, society in itself like has, I don't know the proper word to use there, but like I'll say corrupted young people and the way they go about business. Is that everyone's clout chasing, everyone's trying to wait for the exact right time to make an announcement about where they're going to be going to school or what they're doing, and it's like, I don't get it. I never will. I don't understand it. Some of the announcements that we've talked about on the show, all the way down to like the youth level with like the 7-year-old things, like it's just, who cares, man? Go about your business. Nobody cares about your business. Like, yeah, it's big news, but at the same time, like, I wish him well.
Yeah.
But I don't
Ditto.
know. Too many people make things about themselves and not enough about the game of basketball. And I'm going to continue to be a supporter of Wisconsin high school basketball, regardless of who's here.
Yeah. Trav on the girls' side.
1996 WBCA Mr. Basketball out of Marcus Ann High School, Brad Clark, who has previous stops as a head boys coach at Oshkosh West and Lord's Academy, is now the girls coach, announced last week at Omro. So, pretty high profile coach. Again, a couple of different stints. He led Lords to I think it was runner-up finish a few years ago. So pretty high profile coach moving to the girls side, which is great to see.
One more piece of news before we get into that interview with Coach Wandrey. Okay. I watch on Trav, what do we average on football games a night in the state of Wisconsin?
How many football games?
170.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So on a Friday night, there's 170 games. I usually am tuning in to probably 150 of them, whether it's watching them sometime during the day or the night or like trying to find a final score. I hate seeing purchase to watch. Especially when you know that to buy to watch that, you're just watching the huddle camera do this. $15 to watch the huddle camera, or
what drives me crazy is you never get to see the scoreboard. Especially when you're watching football, right? Like at least with basketball, like most of the times, like there's another camera that shows a scoreboard and everything, where you can see it on the screen. But like I'm watching football games and like I tune in after the game started and I have no idea until I'm like listening really hard to like the PA announcer and like, oh okay, they're in the second quarter with 6 minutes to go and it's whatever the score is,
Chris, I've watched a whole second half of a game to get a final score. Because not a whole set, but you're like speeding up to the end of drives because it's like, okay, I knew the score was 7-6 at halftime, and then that ended up being the final score because I had to go back and find it. Like, man, but just
Colton,
having
how is Huddle this year compared to last year? Do you have to watch a never-ending boot loop of minute and a half ads?
Yes, it's the same. It's awful.
It's not. So you don't last year, when I would fast forward to a spot to try and find the final score, a ad would kick in.
An ad would pop,
Now that ad is just happening at the beginning, but it's the same stupid one from Shields that I have now watched in 2 nights of basketball or football. I've probably watched it 100 times. 30 seconds of it. 30-second ad 100 times.
Hey, they're getting their money's worth with those advertisements.
Yeah.
I need to go to Shields. Like it's insane.
So I understand both sides of it. I as a fan or as people in our business that do watch a lot of games, and sometimes you're trying to find specific pieces of information, whether it's a final score, whether it's a current score, whether it's a play that happened, whether it's a highlight, whatever it might be. It is extremely annoying to, number one, have to pay to do that. Number two, the hoops you have to jump through to do it sometimes. And it's not an ideal user experience. It's not a good user experience, right? But on the flip side, for the schools, I understand it because I think most everyone would agree that in-person attendance at high school sporting events overall has declined in some
1000%.
way, shape, or capacity since COVID, and since then streaming really kicked in hard. So they're trying to recoup some of the lost gate revenue that they would have, which I don't have an issue with that. My preference would be to find sponsors for your broadcast that will cover the cost of whatever the technology is, or whatever else it might be, to allow it to be free to your community. But I do understand the rationale of trying to recoup costs. And let's also be honest that there are upfront costs associated with whatever provider they're using, whether it's the few that are left using NFHS Network or the people that are using Huddle. They have to pay to use those products.
Absolutely.
And so they're trying to recapture some of that and recapture some of the lost revenue from streaming impacts, and also just trying to get extra revenue potentially for their athletic department. My question is always what's the trade-off? Are you really selling enough of those to make it worth the hassle for everybody?
This is the argument that I've had.
Some places there are. I mean, there's places that Muskego High School has done $6,000 in streaming in one football game.
Yes.
So
they're an outlier.
Is one thing.
Arrowhead's an outlier.
Yeah.
But if we were at Richland Center, let's say we average on a basketball or a football game, they average 600 views. You start charging, I would bet my bottom dollar entry ticket that drops down to 50 or less.
Less.
So my question is, what is the typical charge for watching a high school football game this year? What have you seen so far?
Well, NFHS Network, you can get the nice thing about NFHS Network, even though the quality sucks, the user interface sucks, a lot of it kind of sucks.
Yes, yeah, it does.
Crashed on Friday.
Yeah, at least you pay one subscription and you can get any game anywhere in the entire country. Yeah. So I think it's $14.95 a month or something like that, but you get access to everything.
Yeah. Okay. Now, that's affordable.
Yeah. The Huddle stuff, you are paying per school.
Right.
So
so my thing with that,
some have it set up where you can buy by the conference.
Yeah, you're right. But what I've seen on Huddle Fan, right, is it's per game, right? And the thing that drives me crazy is if you want to watch that game and you want to pay, you're going to pay for it. Well, why am I paying more for the video stream than I would if I went to the game physically?
Yeah.
That's my big thing. And I'm sure a lot of other coaches, right, have the same thing.
That's a great point.
I don't have to pay to get into games because the only games I'm going to are either home games or conference games. And I have a coach's pass where I can take my whole family in with me, right? And so I don't really pay attention to how much it costs even to get into a game. I couldn't even tell you actually how much it costs to get into my home basketball games, just because it's not something I worry about. It's crazy to me that an online viewing of a game would cost more than it would to actually get into the game.
At times, physically. Twice as much.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So it's fine if you want to charge for it, great, but charge general admission.
Yeah, that's my rant. I hate. I mean, selfishly, I hate it because I want to be able to watch. I want to be able to do my job, but also I just hate it because, I mean, why put high school sports behind that kind of paywall? Don't you want your community tuning in if they can't make it? That's my 2 cents. We're going to hop over here now to the interview with Coach Dan Wandrey out of Brookfield Central, and then afterwards we are doing our starting 5 of spots to watch high school athletics. All right, joining us this week on the Baseline Banter podcast is boys basketball head coach Dan Wandrey out of Brookfield Central. Coach, how you doing? How's August treating you?
Doing really well. First off, thanks for having me on. And August has been good. I wish we had a little bit of the July weather going in August, but I've heard you guys talk a little bit in the last couple of episodes that this is about our only real off month of the year, other than Chris having youth tryouts this week, right? But yeah, it's been really good. You finally get an opportunity to get out of the gym and do some stuff with the family and be outside and that kind of stuff. So it's been really good.
That's good. We've talked plenty how, I mean, Chris has said June is the busiest month, even in compared to the end season and off season. July can be busy, so August, September, getting to take that time away and just decompress is always good for coaches. And you've been doing this now. You're going into year 29 at Brookfield
Correct.
Central.
Correct.
16 years on the girls' side, going into year 13 on the boys' side. First and foremost, congratulations. Last year you hit 200 wins on the boys' side, 400 wins overall. Huge accomplishment. So a big congratulations to you for that.
I think that means I'm really old. I've been doing it a long time. But thank you. Yes.
We won't say old. We'll say wise and tenured.
I'll take that. Yes. I'll take that. My body probably tells a different story.
Coach, just talking about your Brookfield Central team from last year, you graduated 4 seniors, 4 starters from that group last year, including Henry Grusmacher. And
no problem.
That group shared the Greater Metro title with 3 other teams. That's something that we'll get into in a little bit. But you've always done a really good job of reloading and staying competitive at Brook Central and in that Greater Metro. What was the message this summer, and what was the message kind of as you are going to lead up into your preseason work?
Yeah, I think, the message, you said it. I mean, we've been very fortunate. We've had a great run of success in the tenure that we've had on the boys' side. And kind of the messaging has been the same, right? It's, there's guys that leave and go on every year. Again, just a lot of college level players at all different levels that we've always had to replace. And so kind of just like the beat goes on, if you will, and I hate to be cliche, right? But, what we've always been able to do is kind of have a nice mixture of, upperclassmen, underclassmen, guys that maybe aren't that, top tier or level for a contributor as a sophomore maybe or something, but they're in the mix. They're on the team. They know what's going on. They help to a certain level, and and then as guys cycle through and graduate, it's just really helpful to have guys that have been in the program, understand the system, and our freshmen and JV coaches, I have a couple of former players in that mix, and they do a great job. But it's so different, in terms of going from freshman level to JV up to varsity. And so, we've it's been a combination. I mean, we've been really fortunate to have high level young players, guys that come in as freshmen and that can contribute if they're big guys or just really skilled beyond their years at the guard position, whatever it might be. But we've also kind of been able to just include our best younger kids. And still, not that they don't belong there, not that they aren't necessarily going to contribute, but like I said, maybe get them a lesser role, do some stuff where, these last couple of years, we've had some guys that split time between varsity and JV. And so, as they come in, to be, to go from that guy who averaged 4 points a game, maybe as a sophomore or junior, to now be expected to be one of our leading scorers, right? So for this season, it's more of the same. Now, one of my assistant coaches, I think, said we graduated 76% of our, like some absurd number, right? We're like, you mentioned 4 starters graduating. And, I think Nas Avery he is our only senior right now. And I think he averaged 7 or 8 points last year. And outside of that, I think we kind of have nobody else that really contributed. So, there'll be some big shoes to fill, but, our guys, they work, that June month is really big. We're in the gym every day, and we're playing summer leagues, we're playing tournaments, and there's some growing pains in some of those events this summer, but um, we had great participation. All the guys were around and doing what we asked. So um, yeah, just kind of like I said, just keep plugging along. There's not much that changes in terms of our expectations, and so um, we just keep getting after it, and hopefully we're ready come November.
Yeah, I always say that it takes, on average, you need about 4 core guys from every class, freshman through senior, to really make something special. And if you ever get a chance to where you actually have 6 to 8 seniors, it could end up being a really good thing for you, or it's not. It's a not so great thing, right? And I don't mean that to slight anybody in that sense, but I think like you're never somewhere in between if you have a whole bunch of seniors, right? Like you either have some really loyal guys or you have a really talented class, but it's when you get the mix of older guys and younger guys to really continue that success year after year.
I think the other part of that too, Chris, is maybe when you do have, like we had 6 seniors last year. Unfortunately, one was injured for most of the year, so he wasn't able to play. But some of our most successful teams had a large group of seniors, and to have 1 or 2 of those guys who might not be, really key players, but maybe, the 8th guy who comes in and plays a few minutes a game, or maybe doesn't get playing time on a regular basis. The fact that they stay around to keep 6 or 7 or 8 seniors on your team um, speaks volumes of who those guys are and what their character is, and that's really important on those teams, right?
Yeah.
Seniors are really valuable, and if you have seniors that are bad eggs, any grade, right, that's going to really cause a problem. But our
It says a lot
experience has
about
been
culture, right, as well, and kids enjoying being a part of the program, right? If you have a large number
yeah,
of seniors,
I think so.
upperclassmen.
Let's hope that's not telling a lot about our culture this year, as we only have 1 senior. Um, that just happens sometimes too. I
Yeah,
think.
it does.
So
It for sure happens. I mean, we only have 3 seniors coming back this year as well. So, I mean, it does. There is some ebb and flow to it, for sure. That's why you do need those younger kids at times to really step into new roles, like you talk about. Sometimes earlier than what they might expect, or might even be capable of, especially early in the season.
no, you're exactly right.
Coach, one thing we wanted to hop into and talk to about was a little bit of sectional balance. We talked about this at nauseum last year. Yours half sectional in the Division II bracket was absolutely loaded. Your team, Brookfield Central, you shared the Greater Metro Conference title. You were the 5 seed, so you didn't even get to host a playoff game. You had the Badger Small Conference champ, Sauk Prairie, as the 4. The Wauwatosa West, who shared the Greater Metro with you, was the 3 seed. 2 seed was Badger Large, co-champ, Beaver Dam, and then New Berlin West is the 1 seed. And that doesn't even include a really good Milwaukee Lutheran team. You're good, Trav. Yep, Reedsburg was the 9. We know. But that was... when that comes out and you see that, and that's how that half sectional, not just even you see the assignment back in June or July or whenever it comes out, like that's brutal. One, thoughts on just that when you saw that last summer?
I think you use the phrase sectional balance. I don't know. I struggle with looking at the groupings and saying, wow. I mean, I get it sometimes. 2 years ago, I think Tulsa West and us from the same conference, 5 minutes apart, we arguably were the 2 best Division II teams in the state, or 2 of the top 4 or 5. That happens, right? And that's going to happen geographically around the state. But I kind of joke. I'm an assistant golf coach at Brookfield Central. Obviously coaches in all the different sports, we talk about, if there's any kind of consolation in it, it happens in every sport, right? There are golf regionals or tennis sectionals or soccer, whatever it might be, where all of a sudden you look at one grouping and it's so out of whack, right? I go all the way back. I'm sure all of you, right? Travis here involved with a lot of WIA stuff. I think back to the year that we played the tournament after COVID. So would that have been 2021? They did the kind of reimagined groupings and they made them smaller and tried to get them like geographically, organized. And I had a Zoom call with the WIA, Kate Peterson at the time, and she started drawing circles, right, of how they come up with the groupings. In that particular year, and we were in Division One at the time, Brookfield East, Wauwatosa East, Brookfield Central, Tulsa East, and Tulsa West was our grouping, right? And Tulsa East, Brookfield Central were three of the top 5 teams in the state. And, 2 of those teams didn't make it to Saturday night of the regionals. And the same thing happened up in the Fox Valley with Kimberly and Nina, right? So now I take that to now, and, Travis and I talked about this a couple of years ago when, I was ready to drive to Reedsburg to watch a 8 versus 9 game because we were the number 1 seed that year. We were going to play the winner of it. Like, it's one of the weirdest circles that I could ever imagine looking at our half sectional grouping, right? Where we have Baraboo and Reedsburg and Sauk Prairie. And then we also had Milwaukee Golda Meir and Milwaukee Lutheran. And so, yeah, it's tough. But, the other side of it is at some point in time, you just have to get with your kids and say, hey, we don't have any control of this, right? We have the schedule that we have. We're going to play the games that we play. Our job is to become battle tested enough, right? And it was disappointing for us last year, to say, oh, we wanted to be in the game at New Berlin West, who whatever they were. I think they had 2 or 3 losses on the year, and 2 of them were to Wisconsin Lutheran, right? And it was a really good game. We ended up losing, I think, by 4. But we thought we had prepared ourselves, given the schedule that we played and who we were, to be in that situation and be successful. But it is a little tough. But like I said, at some point in time, you just have to get to your guys and say, all right, we have to get ready for these situations as best we can. Because, as I said, that's not a Division II Brookfield Central issue. It's true in Division III and Division I, all the way across the board. There always seems to be 1 or sometimes 2 of those sectionals where you're just like, man, that just doesn't seem to make sense.
Sectional balance, or as we may call it, sectional imbalance, when it comes to basketball and hoops in Wisconsin. If you could go about brainstorming or being part of the process of how to rectify that, how to maybe course correct or make things better, what would the suggestion you would have for doing a better job of balancing those sectionals?
Yeah, I think one of the things is born out of a committee that Travis and I have been on the last few years with kind of analyzing, after the fact, analyzing the job of the computer seating and taking a look at that. And I think one of the suggestions that our committee came up with was to release to run the formula for the seating before the end of the season. And I don't remember the exact dates. Travis could probably mention or point those out much better than I. But if I remember correctly, the first time we recommended it, we asked for 2 releases. Like maybe one was 6 weeks before the end of the season, the other one was maybe 3 weeks before the end of the season. But I think when I look at that, if I look down the road, a pie in the sky thing is, maybe we can run that seeding formula in the middle of January. Let's just say January 15th. And I've always struggled, right? The sectional groupings came out and then they were last month, right? I just don't see the need for having games that are going to be played in the first week of March, having the groupings released in July. And so, one of my arguments has always been, obviously not everybody makes it in football, but, the one that seems to work the best, and I know they just changed the formula with the qualifying procedure for football, but like the football playoff seeding has always been really good in my mind. I'm not a football coach, but I'm a fan, right? They figure that out in like 12 hours, right? And they release the brackets, and it used to be the coaches would get together that Saturday morning and have a meeting, and now however that works, obviously we don't do it that way. But like they do that in overnight, right? And I know they were working on it throughout the year, but so to me that would be one thing I think we could explore a little deeper, is to say, let's not do groupings. Maybe we are able to identify, the 4 sectional final locations or whatever it is, because my experience and my team this happened with my team several times as we've qualified for sectionals. A couple of the times we were, 2 years ago we were supposed to play Tulsa West. I think the game was scheduled for Beaver Dam or Baraboo on a Thursday night, and it was Tulsa West and Brookfield Central, right? And so come Monday morning after the regionals, they had to find a new location for that anyway, right? And I think we played at Waukesha North that year. So that would be one thing that I would say we could explore, is to say, let's wait to release the groupings. I don't have the magic formula for it, but I also think if it's Chris's Division I sectional with that you get the north side, the northwest, northeast side of the Milwaukee area that goes all the way up to the Fox Valley, I don't think a lot of teams have to be moved to get it closer to being right. I don't think it's a matter of moving these 8 teams and doing this and doing that. I think you can set those sectionals up where you're dividing up the top teams every year, that they're not always in the same grouping.
Yeah, I mean, we've thrown plenty of ideas and suggestions out and had plenty of ideas and suggestions out, and just, I think even back to not just this last year with your Brookfield Central team, but I remember back, was it Patrick Baldwin's freshman year when you, Sussex, and East were all in that one half sectional, and you were either top 3 or 3 of the top 5?
It was the next year. It was his sophomore year and junior year. So his freshman year, Sussex was in the Fox Valley sectional.
Okay.
And they made it to state. Brookfield East made it out of our Milwaukee area sectional. So that's East right. And Hamilton almost met in the championship game. And then the next 2 years, which the second year was the COVID year, we were in the Fox Valley sectional, and it was one of those where, like, it was Arrowhead, it was Homestead. At that time, Milwaukee Rufus King had a really good record. The 2 Brookfield schools, Sussex, Hamilton, De Pere was in there. It was just crazy.
One thing that you did mention, and full transparency, part of your answer to the question that I asked earlier did get cut off, and you did mention it before that about how, outsiders may look and be like last year, I'm just going to use that as an example and say, man, Brookfield Central, a 5 seed, that doesn't make sense. And if that half sectional is balanced and has that balance, absolutely it doesn't make sense. But with the way that those sectionals are set up, now a 5 seed, it looks a little more like, okay, that makes sense. So I think when there is the discourse in the social medias, whether it's from coaches, whether it's from community members, like the understanding of, it's not necessarily that, oh my gosh, how are they a 5? It's, oh my gosh, how is the 4 teams ahead of them also in that same sectional?
Right. Because I think that's the bigger part of it. right? I mean, where they're, I mean, ironically, the number one seed was the only one of the five that wasn't a conference champ, right? And so that's pretty unusual.
Dan, I didn't do a very good job of giving you your flowers in our intro, so I'm going to do it here right now. You've coached 16 years as the Brookfield girls head coach. You're going into 13th year on the boys side, over 400 wins. You were one state appearance on the girls side, 3 state appearances, including 1 state championship in 2019. On the boys side, you're a 2023 WBCA Hall of Famer. You've gotten to experience the high school level at a really high level of coaching on both boys and girls at both sides. What have you seen as the biggest difference in coaching boys as opposed to girls at the high school level?
A couple of things. So, yes, we've been very fortunate at a very high level. When I first started with the Brookfield Central girls, it was not a very high level. So I've experienced a lot of different levels. One correction, I apologize. We did make it to state twice with the girls in 08 and 09. There's a couple of things. And in some ways, there's not that big of a difference, right? I mean, everybody's an athlete, everybody's committed, right? Our success in the girls program at Central, we had to cultivate it a little bit. It took some time, and our kids were extremely committed and bought into what we did, and it was really gratifying to go from Steve Lucknick, who's a good friend of mine, who started his career at West Dallas Central we started at the same time, 1998. Chris, you were probably in about 7th grade in 1998?
98, yeah. Yeah, I was 12.
So anyway, but we joke, right? After about 14 or 15 years, he left West Dallas Central, went over to Oak Creek, and we kind of joke that, one year we played in the sectional final, Brookfield Central and Oak Creek, and back when we started, we were battling for 6th or 7th place in the Greater Metro girls side, right? So, there's a couple of differences, right? Like, I remember the first year, we would do open gyms for the boys, and I'm one of those guys, like, I just kind of have that mentality. I'm the first guy in the gym, and I need to be the last guy to leave, right? And I remember, let's just say our open gym was like at 7:30 on a Wednesday night, and I got to school at like 6:45, and there's like 20 boys standing in the hallway waiting to get in the gym. They wanted to get in the gym and go, right? There always seemed to be a little bit more of a social aspect with the girls where, I never knew I was a Packer Lombardi guy until, my good friend Brian Strobel, who's our golf coach, lives and dies the Packers. And I just, back in early in my coaching career, I just called it the 15-minute rule. And I thought I was so smart I developed that. And evidently I learned that it was actually Vince Lombardi did 15 minutes, and they call it Lombardi time, right? So we kind of just always had that. So our girls would show up 15 minutes early, but, they'd be putting their shoes on and they'd be talking about the things that happened during the day and all that other kind of stuff. The guys are on the floor, they're playing 1-on-1 or 3 on, whatever it is. And so just a little bit, like, even at the end of the day, sometimes, like, our guys, like, they really want to be in the gym. Like, practice is the highlight of their day, and sometimes, not always with the girls, but sometimes it's a little bit more an arduous process of trying to get them to be bought in and focused. But, the depth of talent, and especially over time now, I think, perfect example, 2 years ago, we lost our first conference game of the season at West Dallas Hale. That was their only conference win of the season. and we went on and shared the conference championship that year, right? That kind of balance isn't happening. It's not alive in the Greater Metro Conference girls side of things, and I have to believe it doesn't happen in very many places. I think the depth of talent and what can happen on the boys side of things there makes that, it's a lot more possible. It's a better possibility that it happens. And I think that allows you to maybe do some different things in terms of the game, right? You see a much, maybe a little bit more of a complex approach to doing things. But, outside of that, the game is the game. Maybe, I think back and I would say, oh, well, preparation, everybody's doing this and everybody's doing that. But I think of games when I was coaching in the girls side of things, where, we'd run these plays and they'd have, 3 options. And some of the coaches on the girls side, they knew every option just like our kids did too. So again, maybe the depth of it's a little bit better, but it's still there. Everybody's working hard. Everybody's a professional at it and doing their thing. So, I think now that I hope our guys look at me and say, what did you say, older and wiser and experienced, but there's maybe a credibility. Like I know our guys look at me and say, well, that guy never really could have played basketball, right? And so there's you got to kind of get them to buy into what you're doing a little bit more. Where I think with the girls, it was always a much higher level of trust and credibility. Like they just, they're going to do it. I think one of the biggest differences from my perspective with the girls is they tend to want to do things for each other and with each other at a greater level than what the boys do. I think, most guys, they want the ball, they want to score, it's about them. Where on the girls' side, I think there's a little bit more of I want to be with, well, I know this for a fact. Go back to 2008. I don't know why I won't ever forget this, but we had a really young team. We made it to state, and we started 3 sophomores, I think, and they were really good. Went to state the next year, and then the third year when those girls were seniors was the first year of the Super Tuesday sectional playoff thing. And all the way back then, I remember our Final Four sectional was Pius, who was at the time the Class 8 conference champs, Racine Case, who was the Southeast Conference champ, Milwaukee Vincent, who was the City Conference champ, and Brookfield Central from the Greater Metro. We didn't make it to state that year, but we always have a youth basketball banquet at the end of the year, and I invited 3 of our seniors who were all really good friends, and they started as sophomores, 3-year, all conference players, great kids, right? And I asked them to come and speak to the youth players in our girls junior program. And, I'm thinking, we did such a great job. We made it to state, and they're going to remember these wins and these games and all these things that we did together. And all 3 of them, all they wanted to talk about was that they had the opportunity to play with their best friends. And that was something that they were never going to forget, And so it just kind of puts it into perspective. And now that I've been doing this as long as I do, I say it to the parents. I'm 60 years old. I graduated from high school in 1984. And just 2 weeks ago, I played in a golf outing with 8 of my high school basketball teammates. Those are the only guys from my high school that I still see. And you won't find any state tournament appearances or conference champs in the old Pius Pope's boys basketball program of the early 80s when Dan Wandrey was playing. The girls, on the other hand, were dominant. But I do think that from that to your question, the girls' side of things, they want to be together. The social side of it is much more important. And somebody taught me this phrase, I don't know, 100 years ago. And it's true for everybody. I think it's really true for the girls. They don't really care how much you know. until they know how much you care about them. And I found that to be, really true with our girls teams.
Coach, you have coached boys basketball, girls basketball. You mentioned coaching golf. You've done some stuff with football. I apologize. I don't know what other sports you've done, but when did you start doing things besides basketball, and why? As much time as it takes to be a varsity basketball coach, why take on those other things?
Hey, I know the answer to the question about the golfing because you said it at the event the other day. You've been coaching golf since like 1997. Is that right?
1998. Yeah, I started coaching golf in 98.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I kind of joke and tell the stories, but it's not really a joke. When I was in middle school, I thought I was going to go play in the NBA. Kind of a backhanded compliment. And this goes back to when I first got the boys job. A guy that's really involved in our program ran into a friend of his, and the guy said, "Well, hey, did they finally hire a new coach at Central?" And this father of our program said, "Yeah, we hired this Dan Wandrey guy, whatever. He was our girls coach for a long time." And the guy said, "Is that Dan Wandrey from St. Margaret Mary, back in 1980 or whatever it was?" And this dad from the basketball program says, "Yeah, that's the guy." And this other guy goes, "He was the best 8th grade basketball player I've ever seen in my life." And that's where it ended. I became a much better golfer in high school than I was a basketball player. So I just, like, part of it is I grew up, sports had just always been a huge part of my life. And I think back, I sit in faculty meetings sometimes where we discuss instructional time. Can we have an assembly to recognize the 6 wrestlers who qualified for state, and inevitably it's a math or a science teacher who wants to fight and say, "No, we can't do that. I need, whatever. Like, I just think, high school is way beyond what happens in the classroom and all those other things. So I just believe thoroughly back to that time. And Chris said, yeah. So I started coaching golf actually before I was hired as a basketball coach at Central. I played golf in college at Concordia University. And so that was kind of, I was a 5'9" white guard before we had the 3-point line. So, and I wasn't much of an assister, if you know what I mean. Golf has kind of always just been, something I was really passionate in, but, I love basketball too. And so, the time question, I'm absolutely spoiled because, I mentioned Brian Scrobel, he's our golf coach. Every year we have a conversation because, to your point, Travis, I dedicate all of my time. And then probably, I know it grew exponentially when I moved from the girls to the boys. But, Chris talked about June, right? And the amount of time and the stuff that we do. But Coach Scrobel and I have a conversation every year. Brian, if you need to find somebody who can be more committed to the girls golf program or the boys golf program from a time commitment or from, a dedication commitment, please go out and find him because he allows me to do whatever basketball stuff I need, and I'm sure Chris has been a part of this because I know he and I and Coach Daniels at last year at state tournament, I think we sat around and talked about basketball for about 2 hours, state golf tournament, talked about basketball for like 2 hours, and Coach Sproul was kind of over there, rolling his eyes and, doing that kind of stuff. But I've been very fortunate, from the standpoint of my wife has like just always been right by my side, very, very supportive. My children are adults now, right? We had kids when we were really young. So, the majority of my coaching career, my oldest daughter graduated from Pewaukee High School in 2004, right? So she's been gone and out of the house. She played college basketball, but after that, and then my younger daughter actually played for us at Central, and so you hear that, and Chris, you got a 3rd grade son, like, right? That was never an issue for us because I wasn't even coaching in high school at that point in time. So it's kind of just been like this perfect storm, and yet, I talk with our administrators at Central all the time, like. I believe that what I do on the basketball court and with the golf teams just makes me better in the classroom every day in terms of the relationships that we have. And, it goes way beyond. I'm a business teacher, so I get to teach a lot of really fun, cool classes, and it just goes way beyond the content, and the relationships are really important.
Coach, I want to hop back in time a little bit to March of 2020. Your Brookfield Central, I think you actually did a podcast with Trav shortly after the conclusion of this, if I remember right. But
I do remember that. Yep.
2019, your group went and won a state championship. 2020, you are 24-1. You win that last game in was it sectional semis when boys
Correct.
cut off, right?
Yep.
And possible getting to back-to-back state champs. At least that's probably the goal. And then COVID happens, and boom, that season it's over, done, capiche. When that happens, you have a group of 15 or more young men who have possible dreams just crushed. The idea of playing at the Kohl Center. What is the message? How did you handle that with regards to your kids? I mean, that's a tough time to be a high school kid. Was 2020?
It really was. But I think many times as time goes by, we get the benefit of maybe knowing how to handle things better, or situations become easier to handle. I think in retrospect, I think at that time, we're talking about, a major crisis across the world where they're in Europe, they're having to make decisions about, which patients we're treating and which patients we're not treating because we don't have enough hospital beds and all this kind of stuff right now. I'm not going to get into the political ramifications of all this kind of stuff, whatever, but like, I think it'd be pretty safe to say that we could have continued doing some things, right? But at the time, it was really serious stuff. I just remember talking about that with our guys, and it was really, really hard because, I still see a lot of those players, and we talk about it. I mean, you don't want to be petty and think just about high school basketball, but that's what we do. And we were looking at an opportunity to make some history of maybe going back to back. Now, it wasn't going to be easy. We were getting ready to play Sussex Hamilton, and that was always, I still see Coach Cerrone, we kind of joke about it, right? So when we won in 2019, they beat us twice in the regular season, and then we beat them in the playoffs to go on and win the state championship. And then in 2020, we had beat them twice in the regular season. So their conventional wisdom said, well, you beat us twice last year or this year, and we were going to beat you in the playoffs. And I was like, no, you weren't. But yeah, so it was really hard. But in some ways, it's become even harder now because I think the guys look at it and say, like, God, we could have played, right? We could have whatever. I remember, the game you referenced, we played Brookfield East at Hartford, right? And they moved us into the smaller old gym, and they limited ticket sales and all this kind of stuff. And, in reality, we probably should have stayed in the field house and made everybody spread out and, whatever. But, yeah, it's really difficult, especially I think about it, now and we talk a lot in our locker room and our team room about, your legacy and what you mean to Lancer basketball beyond just what happens, on the court. And obviously, from a court standpoint and playing, that was an opportunity or possible opportunity that we're never going to get, right? And it was an interesting, I think back, Kimberly was really good, Racine Case was really good. It would have been a Madison LaFollette was really good. That was our only loss of the season at Christmas time, right? So it would have been a hell of a state tournament if it was us or Sussex and then those other 14. I mean, it would have been a great tournament, but it's just kind of hard that unknown of the. I really am still stinging from our loss against New Berlin West last year in the regional final, right? But it ended and they beat us, and that's what it is, right? That year, nobody knows, and nobody will ever know. So it makes it really
29 years of doing this. you probably have plenty of stories, some that you could share, some that we might be sharing after we get done clicking the record button. What is one story, though, that you find yourself telling over and over again any chance that you get from your 29 years of coaching?
Wow. Yeah, there are so many of them. I could probably, the two of them stick out in my mind from my time as the girls coach. Maybe I shouldn't tell this one. I better not tell that one. I'll tell you that one after. Um, the first year we made it to state with the girls was 2008. I mentioned we had a group of sophomores that was really talented. We had 3 seniors on that team that remember earlier we talked about seniors sometimes just being role players. Now 2 of them were starters and they were really good, but the younger kids were the better players, and those seniors just knew all the little stuff and right stuff to do. When I coached the girls team, we always had a tradition that we do what we call carbo crams. They're team meetings, right? And we have a carbo cram. Back with the girls, we had one before every game. Weeknight days, they'd go to a local restaurant. If it was Chipotle or Panera or whatever, they'd go as a team and have dinner. And then on the weekend, Thursday night games, we'd go to somebody's house. So the first carbo cram of the year, my wife and I always hosted. And so kids all come to our house. My wife has the meal. We're all upstairs. We're eating whatever. And then the second part of the tradition was we send the girls to the basement rec room and they do their goals for the season. We had the sister of probably the most famous Brookfield Central graduate ever was on our team that year. From an athletic standpoint, you guys can probably figure out who he is. And his sister is on our team. And they're in the basement figuring out our goals. And the seniors come up with the goal, let's make it to state. And the sophomore player is like arguing with them. We can't have that as a goal. Coach always says our goals have to be realistic and attainable. There's no chance we have them making a state. Like it was this big thing, right? And they finally convinced her that, yeah, we should have this as a goal. And then sure enough, we made it to state. So it was kind of fun. And I was at that girl's wedding, and I still see her once in a while, and I give her a good-natured hard time about that.
Coach, we've got a couple questions at the end, but we're gonna hop into a couple quick hitters here. End of game scenario. Let's say you're just down 1, you need a bucket. Are you a great play or great player? Which would you rather have?
It's funny. I've totally evolved in my career. You want a player. You need that player. When you're young and you got your 64-page playbook or whatever, everybody thinks you got the great play to run at the right time, right? You need a player.
Yeah. What coach have you borrowed from more than anyone else during your 10 years coaching?
That's a great question. There's so many. Growing up in my early coaching career, Rick Majerus was a big role model of mine. I got exposed to him. My daughter played collegiately at Cardinal Stritch University. Rich Piniella was the longtime women's coach there. And Rich Piniella and Rick Majerus grew up together. And so Coach Majerus would always come to town in the summer and run a basketball camp at Cardinal Stritch. So I got to meet Coach there and just listen to him talk a lot. And so I stole a lot of stuff, offensive stuff, defensive stuff from Coach Majerus. And then as an extension of that, Coach Piniella was a great resource for me throughout my career. I was a student at Pius. Scott Herrick was in my sophomore year. Scott Herrick was the first year baseball coach at Pius, and he was my coach, and we got to be really good friends. And then he kind of gave me my opportunity, my first high school opportunity, along with Joel Clausen. So those guys were my teachers when I was in high school at Pius. And so, and it's funny, I coached at Arrowhead for Heidi Hamilton. She was a great player and a great coach. And Coach Clausen and Coach Herrick. As much as you steal from those people, there's stuff that you see people do that you would just say, I'm not doing that, right? So I would say those are the biggest ones. Paul Darling, who's back now coaching at Waukesha West, is a guy that we bounce a lot of stuff off each other. It's kind of funny. Just as I was moving from the girls to the boys, wait, you said these were quick hitters, and I'm not making it very quick, am I? I apologize. But it's kind of fun. And we just had a golf outing like 2 weeks ago. We have a texting group of girls' high school basketball coaches. Steve Lupnick from Oak Ridge. I'm going to not mention them all because I can't get them all, and I'd be remiss, and I'd feel bad. But I think our group is up to like 30 some guys, and it's just great. I mean, it was born out of unfortunately, most of our teams weren't playing at the state tournament back then, and we would just all meet up and watch games together, if you know what I mean. And it just turned into this great friendship kind of coaches consortium thing. And now, like every summer, we have a big golf outing and a cookout. It's a lot of fun. So, I would say Coach Finella, Coach Majerus, Coach Herrick. Coach Herrick was probably the biggest influence in terms of the day-to-day, the preparation. He was coaching the JV girls at Pius, and he was sending people out to videotape JV games, and he was making scouting reports. And I mean, and keep in mind, this was the early 1990s, and Pius was just rolling. Their JV team may have been a top 10 team in the state on the varsity level, but he was the most prepared coach I'd ever seen. I tried to take that page out of his book.
What is the best nickname of a player that you've coached?
The ones that I can say on the air that I get.
Yeah.
Geez, there's so many. So many. Best nickname. Truth be told, my longtime assistant and good friend of mine, Joe Shell, he was the nickname guy. He was really good at it. But one that I'm kind of, and goes back to one of my first years coaching. Young lady's name was Lindsay Washour, and I had a hard time pronouncing her last name, so I just kind of pretended like her last name was Worcester sauce, like Worcester sauce, and we called her Sauce. And I was coaching JV at the time, so like it wasn't like she was this awesome player, whatever, that had all this sauce. But that's probably one that I think of the most. There's so many though.
Who in the greater metro? Who is the best dressed coach in the conference?
Wow, Casey Kowaleski from Marquette, hands down.
We ask it every week. Basketball season's a long season, long nights where you don't get supper. What is your quick trip go-to post-game snack?
If it's quick trip, I'm probably getting a can of Pringles and a Diet Coke and probably chicken tenders.
That's a new one. Your Culver's go-to order. This doesn't have to be in season. This can be anytime. What are you getting from Culver's? Another Wisconsin staple.
Yeah, it's I'm getting a double cheeseburger for sure, and it could be that like their Wisconsin melt. So I can either get just the regular butter burger or the Wisconsin melt. Crispy fries and a Diet Coke. And there might be a second butter burger involved. So you got to be a little careful. My cardiologist is listening, or my wife.
Start, bench, cut. Skill, effort, and IQ.
Wow. Start, bench, cut. I used to think that effort wasn't important, but in time I've learned that that's a pretty important skill. So what were they? They were start, cut, bench.
Yep.
Jeez. I got to start skill. You gotta have that. I don't know. I can't do it. Maybe not. Maybe skill is cut, and IQ is bench, and effort is start.
Final answer?
Final answer.
I think you're not the only one that has started to answer that one way and then completely changed it in the middle of answering it.
Although, as I'm saying that, probably one of the most successful guys I ever coached was not a very big, high effort guy. So
I
he was
think
just
I think
really
my
skilled.
opinion on what mine would actually be changes weekly just by what other coaches say.
I 100% agree.
It makes me second guess it all the time, like what I would want it to be.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Coach, it doesn't have to be just strictly basketball, but what is your favorite thing about high school sports?
This one I think is, well, can I have two?
Yep, absolutely.
We already kind of talked about it, like, right? I mean, I'm 60 years old, and I played on a below average high school basketball team, and my guys are still my guys, right? So I think that that's really cool, right? And so just that idea of, um, and I just want to, I'll shape that a little bit further, in from the standpoint of, like, being at Brookfield Central. And Chris mentioned a little bit earlier, like that consolidated, if that's the right term, school district, right? Where you got all these kids coming from different places, right? In Reedsburg, your guys, Travis, like, they're in school together since kindergarten, right? Colton at Richland Center, those guys, like, so we're talking about a lifetime of being together, right? And that's what I have at Brookfield Central for the most part. Do we get some Catholic school kids or other private school kids? Yeah, maybe a transfer here and there. But by and large, our kids are coming through the system, and we know who they are. And so that's really kind of cool. Because when I went to Pius, it was, first of all, Pius was a huge school. We had over 2,000 kids when I graduated in 1984. And, like, my freshman basketball team was like the little all-star team of the Catholic grade school league in our area, right? We had kids from all over the place. So that coming together was kind of cool, right? But the other one for me is kind of born out of an envy that I think we struggle with in a town like Brookfield, where we have two really successful high schools. Maybe right now athletically we're on a little bit of a downtrend, but throughout most of my career, East and Central have both been incredibly good across the board and all kinds of stuff. But I look at the Division One or the large Division Two single school towns. Chris and I have had the conversation about Hartford. Now, maybe it's a little different there because of the makeup of their feeder system, right? But I think of, Kimberly, and I mean, let's be honest. Look at, the Muskegos, the McWanagos, Wanakee, Middleton. Like, high school sports is a huge deal in those communities, right? And I'm talking to, two guys who in Richland Center and Reedsburg and those places. Like, I'll never forget, one of my first years coaching girls basketball, we went and played at Barneville. Now, you want to talk about eating some humble pie, right? I come in from Brookfield Central. We got 15 or 1600 kids in our school, and we played Pecatonic on Friday night and Barneville on Saturday. Like, there isn't anybody in the town that's not sitting in the gym at Barneville. And they absolutely kicked our butts, right? Division 4, 112 kids. I think they beat us by almost 40. Thank God they didn't have a running clock back in 1990, whatever year it was, right? But that whole idea of, like, high school sports being like the staple of the community, right? And I'm not a football guy. I was a hanger on when Jed Kennedy was our football coach, and I was always right on the sidelines, and he would joke and tell me that I could call plays. I'm like, we only run 2 plays. You just hand it off to that guy or the other guy. But like that Friday night football game, right, where everybody in the town is there, right, is just really cool, and I love that part of it.
Our last question, Coach, it's one that AI pops out, and we'll ask it to you. AI wants to know, and it says, in quotation, it said, "Be honest, Coach. What's something about you as a coach that your players would absolutely roast you for? And what's the one thing they'd say you're secretly really good at?"
What would they roast me for? I am absolutely terrible. I'm a big scroller, right? Twitter, Instagram, social media, and I love some of the content, and I can never remember like the verbatim quotes, right? So I have this great thought that I see at 3 a.m. when I'm not sleeping, and I want to share it with my team, and I get to practice, and I absolutely hack it, and they know, and they just laugh, and so then I have to, like it's like the joke you have to explain why it's funny, like the quote that you have to explain why it's good is just not good anymore. That's me. So I think they would totally roast me for that. What would they say I'm really good at? Oh, yeah, I don't know. In comments that I get or in notes or, things maybe, our kids always appreciate our preparation, and the common thread is how they feel like they're always ready for games from a what to expect standpoint. I mean, that might be it. Maybe I'm a prolific Diet Coke drinker. That might be the more honest answer. Actually, it's you know what? Can I change that answer?
Yep.
Because we do a media guide, right? And in the media guide, every player is asked a series of questions, and one of the questions always involves, what can you do to make Coach Wandrey mad? And usually, if we have, we probably on average have 14 or 15 guys on the team, and probably 10 or 11 of the 15 answers involve something with my Diet Coke, like bring him a warm Diet Coke, knock over his Diet Coke at practice, something like that. So they might just say that I'm really good at drinking Diet Coke.
I thought you might have busted out. Maybe you're really secretly good at the Dougie or karaoke in the locker room.
There was a stretch, and maybe I should save this to the part that doesn't make it on the podcast. But when the song Timber, when that was popular when I was still coaching the girls team, and I really liked that song, and I made up some terrible dance that I always did in the locker room with the girls when we'd win. That might have been the only dance move that anybody ever saw. And it was a very simple jumping up and down and like waving one hand in the air like this or something.
There is video on this podcast. You can get up and show us if you want.
I could. Our boys do not see any Coach Wandrey dance moves. Those went out the window a long time ago.
If you were a girls Brookfield Central basketball player in 2008 or 9 and you have video of this, find us on Twitter and DM us that over.
Yeah, it was probably a little bit after 08 or 09, I think, when the Twitter
it was like 12.
Timber craze, yeah. Yeah. We'll actually, I have a good friend who was a photographer of our teams back in that time, and he still to this day will tell me that he's got a folder of pictures somewhere that he just won't show anybody because they're so incriminating.
That's great.
Yeah.
Coach, really appreciate you coming on. When we know it's a good interview is when we strike out other questions that we had, and looking at kind of stuff that we had written down, we have stuff struck out. So it means that we'd love to have you on again to sit and talk hoops, because it was a good conversation. So appreciate your time here on Sunday night.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate what you guys do. I said it, high school athletics, high school basketball, really important to me, and the awareness that you guys bring, and right, some of the thought-provoking issues and questions and stuff that you guys bring up. It's awesome, and it just kind of it keeps high school basketball relevant, and I think that's awesome. And you guys are probably saying, okay, well, that 60 minutes with Wandrey was painful as hell, but I'd be happy to come back on and do whatever. But I appreciate you asking, and it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Plus, I have to go back to school tomorrow.
Yeah,
So
so
if you
do
want
I.
to keep talking for like another couple of hours, like I'm putting that off. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get to bed. I'm going to hit that pillow, and there's no way I'm sleeping because I'm going to be dreading those faculty meetings. As
Well,
you
actually, I
guys can
only have to go
imagine.
for about 2 hours tomorrow, and then I get to leave for a golf meet, so that's okay.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the same boat. So,
Did you
are
have
you guys in
to?
Madison? I
Welcome.
have to do a fair amount of begging to get out of some of these days to coach golf.
Oh, so did I actually. I did actually as well. Not always that easy.
Luckily, I've got a pretty good relationship with our principal, and he's pretty understanding. I joke
Same.
with him that I've been in these meetings for 29 years. I could probably give the spiel.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you could give the spiel. You just did out yourself as not remembering quotes. So
This is true. This is true.
thanks, Coach, and good luck this upcoming year.
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, we are back from that interview with Coach Wandrey. He sat down, even through some technical issues, and sat down with us for probably over an hour if you combine the whole time that he was on. It was fun getting to pick his brain because, again, he did it for 16 years on the girls' side. He's done it for 13 years on the boys' side. He kind of knows what it's like to coach on both aisles of the high school basketball.
There's not a lot of coaches that can say that have done it at a high level anyway for both boys and girls basketball. Jim Myers obviously is a great example. I mean, he is much more well known on the girls side, but he did coach a few years on the boys and won a state title with the boys. But Dan, Coach Wandrey is in terms of like longevity on both sides. I don't know if there's anybody else necessarily like him.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And he didn't even get upset when Colton misspoke about the amount of state appearances that he had on the girls' side.
Yep, hand up.
Which
That's on
kudos to Coach Wandrey there. But no, it's always fun. I find it very intriguing to talk to guys who have done it on both sides. And again, like Travis said, like just at the level, I guess that he does it, like because he's had so much success on both sides, and it's almost like equal the amount of time that he spent on both sides too. Was it 16 and 13?
Going on 13 boys,
yeah. It's unique. It's unique. It's cool, and I think that was a big reason why we wanted him on the show too, is to kind of give us that perspective, because he really did go in depth with a bunch of stuff there, and it was fun to listen to it.
Chris, you did bring up when we asked him the start bench cut, and he changed his answer, and you said, I changed mine. I'm like, so do I. Like when a coach gives me theirs, I'm like, oh man, that makes sense.
Do you change all of those positions based on different viewpoints, whatever? Because I go back and forth between start and bench, but cut for me is always IQ.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're like some of our guests have given some really good background and examples, like to why they choose all three, right, in certain spots. Because have we had someone start IQ? I can't remember right now if we've had someone start IQ.
I don't know. I might need to go back and just listen to everyone and then tabulate it, put a spreadsheet together on what everybody's answers has been.
Because I do
where's
feel
the
like
baseline
IQ,
banter super fan that tracks all of those and tracks.
Yeah, we need a super fan out there. Who's going to be it? Reach out to Chris.
I mean, I know a couple people who listen every week. Shout out Mike Prochnow. Maybe he can help us out with that.
Mike, you're hired. We're not paying you, but you're hired. Guys, last week we did the concession draft, and I won 2 weeks in a row. No big deal. Won the poll yet again, but Dan Barwick tweeted out that
maybe he's our super fan.
At Shoreland Lutheran, they had a fish fry at the football game. If I would have known that was an option, that might have been my first overall pick.
What kind of fish?
Did Dan say, like, is it home battered, home fried?
There was no specification.
Okay.
There might have been a picture. I can't remember for sure. But, yeah, that might have been my first pick. That's impressive.
That is.
Also, before we hop into this week's draft, we didn't say it in the opening draft, but you did have is it JV1?
JV game tonight, yeah.
JV game tonight. Beavers won 44-0. Nephew Brock, who actually, he's our super fan, let's be honest. Brock Wilson is our super fan. Shout out to the number one baseline banter fan, Brock, on his touchdown tonight. Big ups to the nephew.
Helps when dad calls the plays.
That's what
they're making it about you. There we go.
Our dad was over at our house Sunday night. No, he might have been over yesterday before he came, Trav. No, yesterday was Sunday. And he's just like, well, I wonder if Brock's going to get a touchdown. His dad does call the plays.
We threw the ball 3 times, and he caught one of them. So
fair enough. So this week, the starting 5, what we're doing, it might confuse you right away, maybe until we actually start picking, but we're doing specific spots to watch.
Confused me at first.
High school athletic competition. So this it's not sports specific. Maybe the picks might be sports specific. I think a lot of them are going to be, but we're not going just basketball. There wouldn't be enough. I've got some out of the box ones maybe that are specific to certain areas or certain venues. But without further ado, this week's order goes Chris, Colton, Trav, and we are going to hop right into it. Chris, you're on the board.
So I think that since this is a basketball podcast, I feel like I have to pick a basketball one first. I just feel like it's my duty here to do that. And I think, like I told you guys off air, I think this is going to be an unpopular pick when it comes to the game of basketball. But for me and what I like to do and watch during a basketball game, I am going to pick sitting elevated towards the top of the bleachers behind the team that I am cheering for. I like to see what's going on the bench. I like to be close. I like to be on the bench side simply because I like to watch the coaches and the players interact, and I like to see the play calls and all that kind of stuff that are going on. So that's just me being a nerd of the game of basketball, I guess, and that's why I like to sit there.
So I have one that's similar. I don't know if I'll draft it, but I absolutely agree that in basketball, I love being able to not necessarily feel like you're in the huddle, but seeing how coaches handle their huddle, seeing how they handle timeouts. Like, I always find that super interesting.
And the less people around, the better.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother pick. That's a whole nother pick. This one, I don't know if I'm going to be picking ones that I necessarily like. I think there'll be a combination. This one is as retro and as great of a one that you can have, though, in my opinion, and it is on the fence at a football game. This is where all the old alumni are. This is where the dads that do the coaching are. But the fence at a football game, you're going to learn something.
But where on the fence?
It's not like right down. It's not. If you're walking up into the grandstand, they're down over here. Like either as you're walking.
Use a yard line marker, Colton.
Goal line to 10-yard line.
So on the sideline still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like back behind the fence.
Sure.
That's where a lot of the guys, like when at Richland Center, I first walk in and I say hi to about 15 people that are on the fence before I go and find my spot. I feel like, too, that's where all like the guys who are wearing their leather jackets 20 years after playing probably stand.
Is there...
It's a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Do you guys have leather jackets?
I have one. I never wore it. We always wore our basketball team jackets, which were more of like the regular... I mean, it wasn't starter or Apex, but it was like that kind of jacket, you know? That's what I always wore in high school. I never wore my letter jacket.
I never got a letter jacket.
I did. I wore it every day my junior and senior year, basically. And then I think my mom just threw it in a tote and sent it with us. It's in this house somewhere. I have no idea where. Maybe I'll bust it out for our fantasy football draft this weekend.
Will it still fit?
No, not a chance. No chance. It'll be fat guy in a little coat. I'll send you
That's
a video.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
All right, pick is to me for the swing pick, and I'm going to get my top two. And I think I might get my next one coming back later. But number one, my number one favorite, any game, not just like my own game, but watching from the sidelines. I'm not talking about like Colton was, the guys on the fence, whatever, but being on the sideline, whether coaching in the coaching box or when I go to football games, I go on the sideline. I don't sit up in the press box. I hate sitting in regular press boxes anyway because they're just small and
Really?
a lot of times they don't really have a seat for you anyway. So, but I prefer to be down by the action. I played high school football. I've coached it. Like I want to be down there, and there's no better place to watch a high school football game than down there.
Freezing your butt off too on the sideline is way different than freezing your butt off in the stands.
Yeah,
like at a football game.
Yeah. So that's my favorite spot to watch. Again, whether I'm coaching or just down on the sideline as a media member, just milling around. And I will say, I'm not one of those media members that goes in the team box. The team box is supposed to be reserved for the team. I see a lot of people, a lot of media that go in there. I as a coach, I am respectful and deferential to the team that are in that area, and you will never see me in the team box when I'm on the sideline.
I'm gonna snag a picture. I'm gonna snag a picture of you as you're walking through it and just clip this.
You've been with me to many of them, Colton. You know what? Walk behind on the track.
I know you do.
I don't walk through that area. I'm very respectful of that is their area. So I will go from side to side. Like if all the action's down here and then there's a punt or a big play or something that goes down here, I'll walk around, go to the other side and set up shop. But to me, that's a great place to be. You really get a different feel for the speed, the collision, the contact, the physicality than you do from the stands. I think football is a sport that feels so much more different when you are right there, like literally on the field versus in the stands. So my next pick, it's probably 1A and 1B, to be honest with you, but courtside at State Hoops is an unbelievable place to watch. Just being that close to the action. Again, it's a much different feel from down there, even 15 or 20 rows up in the stands. You feel like you're right there, and it's a pretty cool experience to be down there. I've always said I wanted to get courtside seats to a Badger game sometime, just one time. Just once I would like to have courtside seats to see what that is like. But obviously the athletes that we've had in the state of Wisconsin, you get a pretty good view of some pretty good players from that courtside seat.
I'm not cool enough to be able to sit down there. I got to come stand down there by you guys this year, so I felt important enough to go down by you two, and Pickett's was down there, and
we're now a year in. We're now a year into this. Can we get media credentials for the baseline?
You're gonna put in a baseline Banter media credential request?
We should
try.
We would request it, by the way, with new WIAA communications director Jim Strick. Congratulations to Jim. I doubt he's a listener, but someone that we've worked with in different capacities when he's been at NINA and as the communications director for the FVA for a number of years. Great guy. Also state PA announcer, which I'm guessing he'll have to give that up, but great choice by the WIA to be the next communications director.
Well, his loss if he's not a listener.
My next pick, and Chris, you touched on this with your pick. I am choosing my next spot to be as far away from everybody else. And this can be for almost any game. I really do. I mean, I do like sitting next to people that I like talking sports with. But there's a lot of people that I don't want to hear talk. And there's a lot of people that I don't want to talk to. So, and Chris, you know this. Trav, you know this in football. The amount of times that you just get to sit and just watch games feels like it happens less and less. So sometimes I just want to sit and watch a game and just enjoy it. And doing that, sitting as far away from everybody.
I agree.
It's hard to find time to just watch to enjoy.
I know.
Obviously, all of us coach in different ways and capacities and everything, but or for me, my kids have been playing in every other game that I've gone to for quite a while. So just to be unconnected, or if I go to a game, I'm covering it. So to be completely unconnected and just to go enjoy and watch is very, very rare. Colton, last year when we went and watched Kickapoo and whoever they played, who am I spacing now? At Kickapoo, the game that we went to.
Oh, yeah. Who'd they play?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter now. Oh, they played Luther.
Yes. Yeah.
But my family wasn't playing in it. I wasn't coaching. I wasn't covering it really. That was one of the few times in the last 10 years that I've gone and watched a game just to enjoy it.
All right, next up. I'm going to go to the game of golf, and I'm going to choose an elevated area overlooking multiple holes at the same time. It's a lot of fun to be able to sit down on like a top of a hill and be able to see 3 different greens, or be able to see a tee shot, a fairway, and a green, or any mix thereof, and just sit there and enjoy it on a beautiful sunny day watching golf. There's nothing better.
So hand up, I've only ever been to one golf event.
Really?
And it was the State Farm, the senior one they do at University Ridge. My buddy got free.
Not State Farm, AmFam.
Sorry. Has it always been AmFam?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, AmFam. And my buddy got free tickets, so we went down and followed John Daly and Steve Stricker around all day.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege of being able to work for 2 U.S. Opens at Erin Hills on the men's and the women's side, and it's electric.
Yeah.
I've been to another one that was really fun that I've been to is the John Deere Classic. That one is a lot of fun. Birdie Fest, so when there's a lot of birdies happening, it's a lot of fun to watch that. All right, coming back. This is hard for me to kind of choose another one here. I told you I was going to struggle with this one. I had one written down. I have a list here. Hold on, let me look at this list. I have a list of like 3 from each sport, kind of.
What do you got for swimming?
Okay, maybe not for each sport. I'm not hating on swim. Okay, so no, all you swimming people out there.
I've never been to a swim meet, so I couldn't even tell you what.
I've stepped in before. I'm actually gonna kind of. I think this is very different because it's different point of view. But I'm gonna go, and for a lot of the same reasons that Colton said it. But I'm gonna go with the fence behind the second or behind the 4th quarter like end zone. Because again, that's where everybody kind of hangs out that like I know, I guess, like and I don't love being in the stands with because this always happens in football games, right? I don't like sitting in the stands during football games because like all the younger kids are just literally sprinting and running around and all over the place in the bleachers, and it's just like I just want to sit there and watch the game because I don't get to enjoy watching sporting events in person as a fan that often.
Yeah.
We need to go where the mellow crowd is, you know?
Trav, football guy, 4th quarter end zone fence.
So you're behind the end zone, you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what that would be like. So that's like the half fence just outside the track, obviously, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen some great catches from that angle, and it's awesome to see those occur. You know, I mean, it's 20 yards from you, I guess, but it's pretty sweet.
So it'd be disingenuous of me to not take this one. I call it the lab, but when it's my home basement, I guess I would call it. Coaching basketball, I don't get to, Chris, you may live closer to places to get to games and maybe have a different practice schedule, but for the most part, we're practicing 6 to 8 every night during the basketball season. Can't get to games. The nights that we do have early practice, it's an hour or something to catch a closest game. So being able to sit in the home basement where I'll have 2 TVs, I'll have my iPad, I'll have my laptop and my phone. I can watch 5 or 6 different games at once and kind of shuffle how I want to see them. And this is how I watch basketball a lot during the hoop season, especially with the work that we do.
All right, for me, I am going back to state, and I'm going to the Camp Randall press box for state football. The only time that I will go in a press box or not watch from the sideline, and even at state, I'll go down and take in some of the action from the sidelines. But when you're up there, comfortable seats, free hot dogs, free drink, people that you can chat with, it's a good time up there. So
thank God they switched to Mountain Dew and Pepsi a couple years ago.
RC Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to come with you to these, I think, probably going on over 10 years ago now. What was Kimberly Arrowhead Snow Globe game? I think that was my first year at state.
2015.
So, yeah, that was my first year at state. And that game in specific, like Camp Randall was a legit snow globe, and the view from the press box is pretty freaking cool.
For my next pick, I am going to go with from the dugout in baseball. You're not really getting that different of a view of an angle from, the regular fans. I mean, baseball is a game that is obviously a little more informal. There's, people going in and out of the dugout all the time, kids chasing fly balls, whatever it might be. So it's a little more informal than some of the other sports. So in a lot of ways, the dugout isn't that different than anywhere else, but there's something about the dugout. I don't know if either of you played baseball beyond Little League or whatever, but there's something about sitting in the dugout with the guys, hanging out during a game, whether you're, a starter and playing the whole time or just, you're a backup, whatever it might be. It's a pretty cool atmosphere in the dugout of a baseball game.
And you don't have the community to see you, so it's a lot more, you can get away with a little bit more in a baseball dugout, compared to like on a basketball bench or the football sideline.
Sometimes, I mean, there's some that are basically just chain link all the way around, but most of them have some kind of enclosed dugout anymore.
Yeah.
So it does feel a little separated from that perspective. It feels like you are, as much as, again, it's an informal sport in a lot of ways, you do feel like you are insulated a little bit from the people outside.
Yeah, but some great conversations are had inside of a dugout with your teammates.
Yeah.
Especially
honestly,
when you're having a big inning at bat, man, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the most fun that I had in practices ever, again, it's just kind of the nature of the sport, where baseball practices out in the outfield when you're shagging for batting practice, or in the dugout when you're waiting to go up for batting practice or whatever it might be. I mean, those were interesting conversations sometimes.
I got to get this next one before Chris does. So I am taking the WBCA suite at the Kohl Center. Not only
you suck.
Not only
wow,
because it matches up with March Madness. A lot of coaches like to sit there and watch the college games on the little TVs there. There's always a rush, especially if Wisconsin is playing during the time of those games, to get to one of those seats, but it's a good view, in my opinion. I know it's kind of crappy with the hoop there, but I think it's a pretty solid view. And then you get to watch with a bunch of coaches and BS and talk hoops, which is what this is all about.
Or relax and watch the college basketball games that are on the little mini TVs, while watching that game, and also kicking back and eating snacks and taking a little nap in between,
I've never really sat in those seats in front there to watch. I've just gone up there to hang out, chat, grab something to drink, whatever else. I always feel very disconnected from the games up there because it's more of a social environment, it seems like. But again, I've never sat down in those seats to just sit and watch either.
I don't like the first row, the front row of those seats, because they have the little glass thing.
Yeah.
And I don't like that, and I'm short. All right, I am going with my basement bar. simply because it's literally right diagonally across where I'm sitting right now. So I am inside my bar right now, but I'd be on the other side of my bar because I have a TV over there in my living area. I have a TV right here. And then I have my laptop. And then I have my mini Mac that's hooked up to a monitor that's sitting here as well. So I have everything I need, whether it's me viewing a live game or watching films, and just watching as many things as I possibly can, So I love sitting down here. Sometimes I fall asleep right there, which is really bad. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and wondering why my back hurts, and then I forget that I'm sitting in a bar stool chair. Oh man, yeah. So that's probably my favorite spot ever.
The home
Just to
basement
sit in
lab
general.
isn't just for high school athletics. I will watch Sunday Ticket on Sundays and watch 8 games on 2 TVs, and you won't see me. Well, now I got Brewers, so it's going to be a little different, a lot different.
No, it's not. It doesn't have to be. Just bring them down with you.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm going with roughly, I would say somewhere in the range of like 100 to 150 yards out, so I can see the approach shot and the green on the 18th hole on Sunday. There's nothing better than that.
On Sunday of what?
Of a golf tournament. Kidding me? 18th hole on Sunday of a golf tournament.
I thought we were limited to high school.
Oh, damn. Okay, fine. So
that's true.
I will say 18th hole on the second day of the state tournament at golf. Sitting up there or being able to stand greenside and watch those shots come up on that hole is pretty awesome at U Ridge.
Do you go to the state golf tournament? Regularly?
I've coached in it the last couple of years.
Okay, I was wondering. I don't know how often, like how common it is for players or teams from any particular school to get there. Or...
Well, I wouldn't be able to go. Maybe I get it. I can't remember if I get a day or not as an assistant for the program. I can't remember. Just as I've gone every year that I've been a coach at Hartford for golf. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
My last pick,
especially when it's set up for AmFam with the grandstands around 18, it's really cool.
Trav, you can veto whether this is too vague or not, and I need to specify by sport. I'm just taking a lawn chair, and I can take it in multiple instances. So, Trav, did you have lawn chair specific for your last pick, and would you like me to specify?
I did not, but I would like you to specify like where you would sit or where you would sit for if you're taking it for multiple sports. Like, where are you sitting in your lawn chair?
Baseball, I'd like it like down the third or first base line, like further out.
How far?
Past.
How far?
Not just like past. You're still behind the fence, but you're not out past it.
So past the dugout.
Yes. You're contradicting yourself, Colton, because that's where everybody sits.
Have you seen the diagram, the meme of the baseball fan sections and who sits in each spot?
So at center, it's not like that. Everybody sits behind. Everybody sits in the bleachers.
Behind home plate?
Yeah. That's where the bleachers are.
Dude, I'm telling you, like when I go to a game here in Hartford, man, I love the lawn chair thing. It's great. I go out behind right field fence, and it's perfect. I love it.
I will say too, like if I do love a lawn chair, like when center hosts their 7-on-7 tournament down at the practice fields, their football 7-on-7s, like taking a lawn chair and just sitting there. Fun little day.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta have a good chair though.
You do. Trav, final pick.
I'm just thinking hard.
I'm shocked that neither of you took from the bench in a basketball game.
I'm not watching too much. I'm coaching.
I'm not watching the game either. I can't. I just.
But you're experiencing the game. So
Yeah.
I will take that as whether I'm the head coach. I've never been a high school head coach. I've been a head coach in junior college and obviously a lot of youth stuff. Whether I'm a head coach, when I was a varsity assistant, boys basketball coach, whatever. Even though you're only a row or two ahead of the fans, I mean, watching from the bench and being in the game, right, where you're involved in the discussions, when you're involved in the huddle, when you're involved in decisions and all those other things, to me is just a different experience than sitting
There's like
two rows back as a fan.
During one of my games, like I can't say I enjoy it. I think I enjoy it afterwards. Like I'm not sure I'm enjoying myself at all on the sidelines during a basketball game that I'm coaching.
During a game,
I'm so stressed out.
I don't think I'm watching.
It's crazy.
Like, I mean, I'm watching, but
Yeah.
like watching to enjoy is
completely different. I
thought about this pick.
I did too. I actually, I mean, I would have never picked this one. I'm telling you, I actually started to track because my wife was curious. I actually started to track like what my highest heart rate during a game, like what the highest it hit during a game was. My highest heart rate this last year during a basketball game was 194. 194.
You got to go through that SEAL.
My guy.
You got to go through that SEAL training where they talk about keeping your heartbeat at 60 beats per minute, no matter the situation you're in. You got to go through that.
You've seen me coach, right, Travis? Like, I'm a crazy person on the sidelines. Everybody knows.
I will say there are times that I have sat on the bench and enjoyed it, and it's when you're running a youth basketball tournament and you just sit and watch. Like if your fifth graders are playing, you sit at the end. Don't talk, don't anything. I love
sitting and watching youth games and hanging out and watching, especially like when you have like your 7th and 8th graders and you're watching them play and you start to just, because it's just what, it's your prerogative as a coach. It's like, oh man, like in 2 years, they're both going to be here. What's that going to look like? How do they mesh together? I start thinking of all that stuff. And like, then I'm like watching it and it's just like, oh yeah. That kid's good at this and this kid can do that. And here's how I would manufacture this. Like that's what I'm always thinking about when I'm watching our youth, especially our older youth.
I'm curious about this. How much do coaches pay attention to those lower levels? Like what kids are actually doing and if they're doing well and who, all of that kind of stuff, or is it tuned out, you're preparing for the next thing? Because I've seen some coaches, it seems like they're not even out hardly at all for lower levels. They don't care to watch. Like, what have you seen? Not just what you do, but what do other people that you see do?
I mean, across our conference, I would say that all of our varsity coaches, for the most part, are out watching the JV games, the JV1 games. Like, and for me, like at home games, just I will go and like check the score periodically of our JV2 game, and if it's really close and a really good game and it's a better one than the JV1 game that's going on, I might stay in there a little bit longer. But most of the times, I'm sitting up in the top row behind our JV home bench and just watching that. And I mean, those are the next guys up, so like I'm always really paying attention to what they're doing and what they're good at, and it helps distract me from what is coming up, because I know like I'm just a high level stress guy like before games, so I need something to distract me, and that helps.
Before we get into the draft and get into the full draft results and out of here, what did you guys, Chris, let's start with you. Any honorable mentions that you had?
No, not really. Like I said, I struggled to make a very long list to have like anything good. I don't really have any that are really worth mentioning all that much. I mean, I don't know.
I have a few. One of the ones that I had was watching a game with another coach, a game that you're unconnected to, watching with another coach, where you can. It's not just some random person or someone that thinks they know what they're talking about, or a parent trying to.
So I had that like amongst the coaches, like down at the Kohl Center, like in those seats.
Yeah, I will say that Watching baseball directly behind the plate, I enjoy. That's my favorite place to watch a baseball game, rather than down the sides or behind the fence or whatever. It's the best view anyway. If you have a decent set of
Because you like
bleachers.
to harp on the umpires? Is that what it is?
No, I just
Get
I
after
like
that
the
home plate umpire?
no, I don't I don't do that. But I think it's just the best view of the game, to be honest
Bring
with
him
you.
up.
And then one of the specific ones I had, Colton, you've never gone to Stoughton for a football game, have you?
No.
So Stoughton has a pretty cool setup. There's houses behind the one side of the field, and they're up on a hill a little bit, like, I don't know, 15, 20 feet above the playing field, just up a little rise. And several of those houses have tailgates and campfires in the backyard because they're only 40 or 50 feet behind the exterior fence. And so that's always been pretty cool. I've never gone up there. I always wanted to just go up there and say hi and see if they'd give me a brat or something. But that looked like a really cool place to watch because they do the tailgate stuff beforehand, and then they get a campfire going, and they're sitting up there around the campfire watching the football game. Is a pretty cool would be a pretty cool way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
I guess like the press. I actually like watching a football game from the press box. Like, I think that's fun.
A couple honorable mentions that I had, kind of just from a hill, like a football game. If like at Richmond Center, for instance, all the stands are on one side. The grandstand is. There's a nice hill on the other side. I've actually never sat over there. I don't know why.
Here's the
great.
key, Colton. That is outside of the fence, and so those people are not paying. Which
yeah, they are.
Are they?
Yeah, that's inside the admissions fence.
Oh, okay. There's places that I go to, basketball and football, where there is something like that, where there's a hill outside of the fence that's like public, or maybe it's really close to the street level and people just stand outside the fence. I despise those people that are too cheap to support the community. But it's not just like, oh, I'm passing by, I'll stop and watch. They literally set up shop there every single game, and they know exactly what they're doing.
Have you guys
just being cheap?
Have either of you been to Hartford? Travis, you've been to Hartford for a football game before, haven't you?
Yeah.
So like towards the one end zone that's on this, like towards the street, there's that hill off to the north or whatever. People come and put down their blankets and sit on that hill and never come in the stadium and don't pay. They just sit there and watch from there.
Hopefully they make a donation to the school at some point, but I'm sure it doesn't happen.
You say yours, because maybe you're saying it right now that I was going to say.
I had the nitty.
Okay, no, I was not saying
basketball.
That. I was going to say the student section.
That might be a really big miss.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not where we want to be right in our point.
But when I was in high school, the student section for sure.
That's kind of a huge omission that we didn't put in.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I had almost zero time spent in a student section because I played 3 sports. So I wasn't in the student section for football, and I wasn't in it for boys basketball.
I have some great memories.
You were in it for volleyball and girls basketball?
I didn't go to hardly any volleyball games.
Oh my God, volleyball was awesome in high school.
I didn't go to hardly any girls basketball games either. A lot of times we played the same nights. And
yeah, it's true.
So I bet I spent less than 10 games total in my life in the student section.
My senior year, our girls made it to state in volleyball and in basketball. Like, those are some great memories that me and my friends still talk about it to this day.
I was dressed up as everything when I was in school, and then Tay was in school with me. Like, we made it to sectionals all 4 years in girls basketball. We're really good in volleyball.
I was never the dress up guy. I was a vibe guy. I was an energy guy. I do have one more, and it is another golf one because I love watching golf. But, and I know we're talking about high school sports, but it's still funny. But if you're sitting next to like a very key hazard area on the golf course and just watch people just fire it in there, and then there's like, man, that happened a few times today because we were playing at Hidden Glen in Cedarburg, and a lot of water.
All right, let's go over this week's draft, and then we'll get out of here. So we did the spots to watch high school athletics starting 5 this week. Chris went with the top of the bleachers behind the team in b-ball, elevated overlooking multiple holes in golf, the fourth quarter end zone fence in football, the basement bar, his basement bar, and then the 18th hole, second day of state golf. I went with just the fence in football, as far away from everybody else, the home basement, the WBCA suite at the Kohl Center, and then a lawn chair. And then Trav went with from the sidelines football, courtside state hoops, Camp Randall press box, the dugout in baseball, and then from the bench in basketball. Just a quick programming update.
Travis, you might win.
I think
I don't know if I'll ever win. People don't like me.
Travis got a good chance.
It's a pretty good list.
Draft. Just a quick programming update. I misspoke last week. We will have an episode this upcoming week. Labor Day weekend is the following week, so we'll have week, then week off. So, yeah. All right, Trav, get us out of here.
Get on the baseline.